Hi, in this video we're going to be showing you how to assemble this TV stand. Before we get started, here's a few things to keep in mind. Make sure you have a Phillips head screwdriver. Estimated time for assembly is 50 minutes with 2 people and a little bit longer with 1. And just make sure all the pieces are facing the right way as you're putting it together and you'll do great. We're going to focus on the trickier parts and go quickly through the easier steps. So make sure you pause the video and complete all the steps as we go. With that said, let's get into it. In step 1, we'll be putting dowels into pieces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 11. All right, once we have all of those in, then we're good to move on. In step 2, we'll start by putting the foot into piece 11. So we'll insert this black wedge into the bottom, press that in all the way, and then we'll take the foot and screw that into the plastic piece. Next, we'll be putting our shelf pegs into pieces 7, 8, and 9. And you can put those at any height that you want, but we're gonna put them into the middle hole. Make sure you put it into both sides of piece 9. And then we'll also be putting cam bolts into pieces 1, 5, 7, and 8. Okay, and then we're good to move on. In step 3, we'll be attaching piece 11 to piece 4, and then pieces 3 to piece 1. Now with these, just make sure that you put the blocks on the opposite side that this groove is on. So we'll stand it up this way. And this leg is going to attach into this middle hole here. So we'll just line up the dowel, and then we'll put a bolt through the other hole. And then with piece 1, we'll also want the blocks on the opposite side of this groove, so we'll stand it up with the groove facing us. And then we'll be inserting the side of these blocks. It has only one dowel on it. We'll line it up with these holes. And then we'll put a bolt in on the other side. Okay, and then we're good to move on. In step 4, we'll be attaching pieces 6 and 2 to both of pieces 5. With these, you want to make sure that the cam bolts are on the top sides of both of these pieces and that these cam lock holes are facing up. And also be sure that piece 2 is going into the middle. So we'll line up our dowels and cam bolts and secure those with cam locks. Okay, once we have those secured, then we'll stand up this piece like this and we'll move on to step 5. So we'll grab piece 8 and we'll stand it up so that this block is on the top side, and then we'll line up these dowels with the top holes on the piece here. And we'll secure that with 2 bolts on the outside. Okay, once that's on, next we'll move on to step 6. And we'll take piece 1 and we'll stand up this piece so that these blocks are facing towards this piece here. And you'll also want to make sure that the groove on this piece is on the bottom edge of this side. We'll line this up with the cam bolts on the side. And then we'll also want to line up both of the dowels on each of these blocks with the top pieces here. All right, once that's all connected and lined up, then we'll put in 2 cam locks on this side here. And then we can move on to step 7, and we'll be attaching piece 9 into the middle. And you'll just want to make sure that these cam lock holes are facing towards this side here, and we'll line them up with the bolts. We'll secure that in place with 2 cam locks. All right, once that's secured, then we'll move on to step 8, and we'll take piece 4. And we'll line this piece up on top, making sure that this groove is going to be lining up with the one down here. So we'll set it on top of the middle piece, and line up those dowels. And then we'll also line it up with the cam bolts on the side. We'll secure this side with 2 cam locks. And then we'll also put 2 screws in the bottom here. Okay, once those are secured, then we'll move on to step 9 and we'll take our back panel. I want to insert it so that this sticker is facing towards the back of the piece in one of the top corners. So we'll flip this over and we'll slide it into our grooves. And then we can move on to step 10 and we'll attach the other side. So we'll line this up with our dowels on the bottom. Once we have those together, then we'll secure those with cam locks. And then we'll also put 2 bolts into the top corners. And then we're good to move on. And step 11, we'll be inserting the new easy wedges into the back panel. So we'll just take this flat edge here and we'll be inserting it in between the panel and the piece. So we'll just push that in until it's flush with the piece, and then we'll repeat that process for the rest of the edges. And then we're good to move on. In step 12, we'll be inserting our shelves, and with these, you just want to make sure that this finished edge is facing out and this edge is facing towards the back. And then we'll insert it at an angle. And then we'll set that down on top of the shelf pegs inside. And those pegs should fit right into these notches on the shelves here. And then we're good to move on. In steps 13 through 17, we'll be working on attaching our doors. So we'll start by attaching hinges to all of our doors. We'll want to fit these into the little notches that are already here and line up the screw holes. And then we'll screw those into the door. So each of our middle doors, so these two will attach right onto the piece, but our outside doors are going to screw on with these between the hinge and our piece. With these, you want to make sure that you put them on so the square side is facing towards the front and this angled side is facing towards the back. So we'll line this plastic piece up with the holes on our hinge. And we'll take one of our screws. And then we'll line this up with the hole in our piece. And screw that in place. You might not want to tighten that completely, so you can make sure to line up the other screw as well. And then we'll do the same thing again for the bottom hinge. Now once we have all 4 of our screws in part way, then we can tighten those completely. And then once we have our doors attached, then we'll also attach the handle. So we'll want to put the screws in from the inside to the outside and line them up. And then we'll tighten those completely. Okay, once we have our handles attached, so we can close our doors and see if they line up. Ours looks pretty good, but if you need help adjusting your hinges, you can check out our video on that, but otherwise we're good to move on. In step 18, we'll be putting the glass on the top of our pieces. So I'll just want to carefully put it over the top here. It may help to keep one hand underneath the piece. And we'll slide this down on top of the grooves that are on top here until it fits flush into the piece. And then we'll do the other side. And then once we have those in, we're all done. We hope this video was helpful for you in assembling your new TV stand. For more guides, tips, and tricks, head on over to walkeredison.com.